Well, good morning, John. Where are you?
Well, I'll tell you in a moment exactly where I am. I'll tell you where I'm not. I was diverted. I'm not fishing for tuna off the coast of Venezuela, I'll tell you that.
Well, good. I'm glad about that. You could get hurt there.
Easily, but I wanted to, just take a jaunt down south a little ways, and it's odd to people to know this, but Venezuela is actually in the northern hemisphere. Did you know that? And even though it looks like South America, it's not. It's in the northern hemisphere.
I did understand that.
And, when you look at a map, and this talks about how we divide things by hemispheres these days, look at from the northern and southern hemisphere. And Greenland's like in the middle of it. And Greenland's farther away from the United States, did you know that, than Venezuela is? I
didn't know that, but...
Just an interesting odd thing, because you put a state far away of the 51st state.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to see what was there firsthand. We'll come back to it, I suppose. But right now, I'm doing what I always do this day of the year, and you might know a little bit about it, but I go to the banks of the Jordan River.
Well, I understand exactly why you do that.
And you might tell people, because I get tired of telling them myself. There's got a reason.
You shouldn't get tired of the people that listen to us. And I take that back for John.
Yeah.
He's a little grumpy this morning.
I actually am. My phone's
that's
dinging.
okay. We need to get him some alcohol in his coffee, Bill. But the reason is because this is your name day. In Greece, if somebody, or in a Greek community, or down at either of the Greek cathedrals, if you walked in and they knew your name, they would say what to you?
Χρόνια πολλά. That's the simplest. That's the shortest version. And it can extend out to all kinds of greetings.
And that means Happy John Day?
No, it means many years, basically. It's a literal translation. You say it on birthdays and name days. In Greece, almost everybody, because there's like 7 names. You use Nick, John, George, right. Peter, Mary. They're saint names,
sure.
or higher figures within the Greek Orthodoxy hierarchy, saints and so on. But when one is baptized in the Greek Orthodox faith, you take a name.
Right.
And my name is John, and that's celebrated on today, St. John's Day.
And it's after John the Baptist.
It is. Mine and his, yeah. Sometimes there are some people that might be given the name Nick, and there might be 2 St. Nicks or something, and right. For whatever reason, one might celebrate it differently on a different name day. But name days are remembered by everybody in Greece. So everybody in Greece right now, it's later there now, and they're 9 hours ahead. It's still happening to me. My phone's beeping off the hook. Are saying to everyone named John, Χρόνια πολλά. That's in acknowledgement of my name and my name day. My grandfather, for example, he celebrated his name day, but he didn't know his birthday.
Uh-huh.
And so he knew his name day because he was a saint, and so all the people with his name would celebrate on that same day, but he didn't know his birthday specifically because there were the proper records that were kept many of them were subsequently destroyed in the Turkish occupation and so on, and that's one reason not to know it. But they always knew this. They always knew their name day per the saint, and so every year you get that honor once a year.
I love that. I love that about the Orthodox Church, the Greek Orthodox Church. I love the community, and which give us an opportunity here in a second to thank somebody. But my dad was named Nick because he was born very close to St. Nick's Day, which is celebrated in the Roman Catholic Church. And in a lot of instances, for those same reasons, since records were destroyed within Catholic nations, people then do rely on their saint name that they're given, if they're given one on that day, or on the day that you were confirmed in the Catholic Church. I took the name Joseph. I think we mentioned that before. And so those are things that Western civilization, post the fall of the Roman Empire, has done a lot. And I find them interesting and fascinating, and they shouldn't hurt anybody's feelings. But we get to our patron saint, in a way, Father Makarios, who's a saint, but not a saint in the...
You don't know him like I know him. I think he's my cousin, so I have a hard time saying he's not a saint. He's a good guy.
The mere fact that maybe you are not perfect doesn't make you a saint, okay?
Okay.
All right, you got to understand that. I mean, and there are lots of examples of it's similar to him. Saint Charles de Foucauld was a rounder and a bounder and a bounty hunter, a mercenary almost kind of guy, and he's a saint. When you know his story, you know why. And I mean, to me, Father Macarius is, and I want to personally thank him for coming and spending some time with us last time, and also he may come again.
Yeah,
with
he
us.
got a lot of good feedback. We did, and surprisingly, because we didn't do anything a sentence in our discussion of political nature, and but people still listen a lot, and so they were happy to hear that message from him, because they found out some things about themselves, the people that don't understand.
Right.
Christianity extends beyond, the local pulpits. So, and the histories of it, it was eye-opening for a lot of people because they didn't know.
No, and I mean, he just touched the surface, so he may be back with us. He's going to spend a little bit more time in Utah, but it was really fun for me, and really, I learned a lot from him as well, so thank you.
Well, yeah, and just to, how it happens with the name day John, what happens in Greece culture did forever and still does technically, but we don't do it the same way here, is when a baby's born, they're not given a name on their birth when they're born. They're just called baby.
Right.
And until they're baptized. And at the time that they're baptized, the mother and father will select a godfather, godmother,
right.
Sponsor. The sponsor names the baby.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So sometimes they'll go, the parents have some say on it, and of course, in our case, I was already John, but I was 6 or 7 before I got baptized. I don't remember, 5 or 6, something like that. And so I'm John already, so they're not going to change my name. I would have maybe a baptismal name, but I wouldn't switch my name. So, like, the parents might say, hey, we really hope you name our son Ron.
Yeah.
Would you please do that? And they go, yeah. And sometimes they say, yeah. And then they tell the priest, okay, what name do you give the baby? And they go, Maleficent. Or something,
yeah, right.
Something else. Why? Well, because my uncle had that name, and I want to pass it on because he had no children.
Right.
And next thing you know is, you're not Ron anymore, you're Maleficent, and you hate it for life, but whatever. And the families feud forever, but the sponsor names the baby.
Well, consistent with that, and on your name day, John the Baptist, they wanted to name him Zechariah, and Zechariah, who had gone mute, after he had seen a vision in the temple as a priest, couldn't speak anymore. He goes and he signs to them, no, his name has got to be John, because that's what his wife wanted. And then his mouth opens, he's able to talk, and it's like, no, his name is John. And so that's kind of interesting.
That might have been where it began. I don't know.
But anyway, the other thing is about that is that if my dad had been there, they hadn't named me, he wouldn't have wanted me to be named Ronald.
Well,
my dad hated my name. My dad told me one time, I hate to say this publicly. My dad told me one time, I hate your name. It's a Chuvod name. I don't know why in the hell I let your mother name you that. Okay?
When I was scrambling for names just now, I chose Maleficent, what isn't even a name, because I knew no matter what name I chose would not have been what your father wanted.
Well, my father would not have gone with Ronald, okay? But it's okay.
Yeah,
I'm cool with it.
I'd already been named after my sponsor's father anyway. My dad, who was brought up by Father Macarius last week, he didn't have a name. And what happened where he was born up in Moreland, Idaho, Moreland near Blackfoot, right through there. Some Greek guys came through town and they saw the little baby. They approached my grandfather and said, hey, we'd like to sponsor your son when it's time.
Oh.
And so my grandfather said, yeah, okay, fine, come back in May, whenever he's going to get back. Well, he's born in May. Come back in August, or whatever the date. The guy comes back alone. And the guy is like, well, where's your brother? And he died. Oh. So my dad was not, Pete isn't a name in our family standardly. This is told to me by my Aunt Maggie, that he took the name Pete because the other guy's brother died somewhere up there in Idaho, and so that's how he got the name Pete. It was an agreement.
Don't you love stories like that?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
I mean, I think they really are great. Other than somebody picked it out of a book, because it sounded
Or made
good.
one up.
Or made one up, like Genarius
Yeah.
or whatever.
Madonna,
Yeah.
Utana.
There was one. Yeah. No, I won't go there. But anyway, some good Johns from Bingham.
Yeah. Okay. So if it was still happening in Bingham, one would right away be honored today. Croniopola would have been the guy I was named after, John Leventis. He led the Cretans in the strike and the Greeks again the strike in 1912.
Right.
Versus the National Guard and the striking positions up on the hill. That would have been my godfather's father. John Thomacus, he lived in lead mine. He was an electrician on the hill, and he did everybody's electrical work. Never known if he got paid for it or not, but he was always walking around fixing somebody's fuses or something. He was a John. We knew a good friend of mine, Marty Muhar,
Yeah.
who you have ties to. His father was Johnny Muhar.
That's my godfather.
Okay, well, he was
Great
They
guy.
were Catholic,
Yeah.
and that's okay. But when Johnny used to say they were Austrian, not Croatian, by the way.
Well, that was what they were. They were controlled by Austrian-Hungarian
Yeah.
Empire
Yeah.
at the time, and they referred to them. When you read the books about them, you read that they're Austrians. There's a famous case criminal case that takes place in a bar in Midvale, and it's called State versus Hill, not Joe Hill, although it's used in the Joe Hill case when the Supreme Court deals with State versus Hillstrom. Joe Hill's real name, but anyway. Actually, his real name was Hogland. But in that case, the Supreme Court writes about all these Austrians and the fight that occurs when a constable is killed, and the names are all, Serb or Croat names. I mean, but they refer to them as Austrians.
One more, Johnny Muhar was they called them hoggers. They drove the trains.
Hogger.
Well, another one's there was two great ones when I was young, and they did the same wave out the window, and the other one was Johnny Tangaro.
Yeah, the Tangaro family.
And so there was a lot of Johns in Bingham.
Yeah. Johnny Bolich.
John Garacio, who's my age, Italian kid.
My uncle John Yengich.
Yeah. So today, everybody named John in Greece is getting the Croniopola and other wishes for good health and good luck in the new year and all that kind of stuff. Happy to be a John today.
No,
And my
we're
phone's
happy
been
that you're
dinging.
still here.
I'm getting messages from everyone.
And not only that, that's our Greek word of the day, or Greek phrase of the day, right?
Croniopola, many years.
Many years.
Said it happy. We say it like Greeks say it like we say happy birthday.
Yeah.
And they say it again on my birthday. People are saying the same words to me, and the same phrase. But in Greece, they don't celebrate the birth date as much as you might remember it now or document it better now. But the celebration is on their name day, and today's my name day.
I like it. That's cool. And when we think about that, and we've thanked Father Makarios, I guess the next question is when we look back on 2025, what feelings we have about that. The City Weekly came out with their end of the year in, year out issue. I looked at that and reminds me to thank your son particularly, but you as well, for your support and the City Weekly support for the Bingham Boys podcast. This is a great issue, and it led me to think, after looking at it, about how maybe we can talk about the year when we get to it in maybe a little bit different way. But I think that we have to decide really where, if not we are personally, where we are mentally right now relative to the politics in America, and that would be Venezuela.
Yeah, like I said, I hightailed it out of there.
Yeah.
What you hear right now is, the couching of what occurred as, it's either legal or it wasn't legal. He was a good guy or a bad guy. I don't think we need to. I hate the discussion that begins like, Maduro was a bad guy and he had to go. And I don't care who says it, left or right.
And some Democrats have rolled over and played dead using that as the mantra.
But I look at it, was it the right or wrong thing from a different point of view. It's plainly obvious he wasn't a saint, but it's also plainly obvious that the current president ran on a policy of no more wars and no more police state, and we're not the policeman for the world, and yet that's exactly what's happening. And that seems kind of where we should be talking about. When when we can just switch gears anytime we want on a whim as a society, we're not heading anywhere except we're just moving around and who's ever pressing the buttons has control. This is what authoritarian regimes work at, and they're very good at, and what we're not good at exposing as what the real issue is. And it's us. We got to say who we are and what we do. Okay, you can condemn Maduro. You can even go to war with Venezuela, but there are ways to do it. And it's not just waking up in the middle of the night and hitting the button and going, hey, we got him.
No, I mean, you can't poop out foreign policy on the toilet while you're tweeting. And that's what he does. And that kind of is where we got where we are. He also now has reiterated that he wants to take Greenland again as our 51st state and all over the world.
Why didn't we ask Venezuela to be for the 51st state?
Well,
Why didn't we do it
could've
diplomatically? Maybe in the background, maybe they did. Carolyn Levitt says, well, how do you know we're not being diplomatic? Well, we don't.
Well, we know
that's the
that
problem.
We don't know anything.
Right. People say Trump is transparent just because he stands at an airport, on an airline, Air Force One door and answers a few questions. That's not transparency.
No.
That's just standing there. Transparency is letting us freaking know what's going on.
Well, the other part about it that is really troubling is this. They attack fish boats, and maybe there were drugs on some of them. We won't know.
Nobody knows.
We blew them out of the water, killed a bunch of people, acted tough. Hegseth, he showed everybody how big his biceps were and didn't respond to any of the criticism. And they called it drugs and that we were doing drug interdiction down there, even though the facts are that fentanyl isn't coming from Venezuela. And if it's coming from there, it's not coming from there only. And it was a pretext to get there. And now we know that.
And transparency, true transparency would have said all that.
Would have said that.
I'm
and
going to speak to the country today about something very difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
And this is what the president could and should do.
No, that's what he should do.
He should say, hey, look, America, I've looked at this, and we actually have some real political, strategic reasons to look south. And I'm talking to you now to make a plea for you to understand why I feel this way, my cabinet feels this way, and garner support of Americans. That's not the way this guy behaves.
And here are the facts to support it.
Right.
And by the way, so call your congressman because we're going to follow the Constitution. And if we're going to declare war on Venezuela, they've got to do it.
Right.
And then once they do it, they can fund it because they're the funding arm of the government. And this isn't just a one-person decision. And it's not the decision of the Article 1 President of the United States.
People who are the third of Americans that voted for Trump and stay with him say, he's decisive. He speaks like us. Well, yeah. Let's impose tariffs all over the world with no thought about the day after. And this is the same. There's no thought about the day after. We're going to do something there as a country. Hey, Ron, you and I are roughly the same age. You're like, what, I'm going to guess 10 to 15 years ahead of me. But, fuck me.
I think I just said, what did I say under my breath? I'm sorry. You better
both of us at the
that.
same time.
Yeah, really. Go ahead.
So, what was the first police state you knew about?
Well, there have been police states
What's the first
everywhere.
one? When you were a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, Russia. Actually,
what?
When I was a little boy.
What was the United States? Where were we being the policemen?
We have been a policeman a lot of from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. If you want to go back to where I first
I just want to go to Vietnam.
But then I'm getting there. I mean, you said when I was a kid. Vietnam, we went in, we followed.
Montezuma told me a lot about you,
yeah.
too.
What's that?
Nothing.
Well, that's the Marine Corps hymn, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. We went in and fought Mexico and in really a false war. We went to Tripoli for a reasonable purpose because they couldn't stop piracy on the high seas. Right. But we've done it in our time. In most instances, it has been done with the either complicity in Vietnam or the ascension of Congress, and the people have been told about what we're going to do, right? So if this was done right, and they wanted to go get rid of Maduro, and they thought that was a good policy, and it was a moral and a legal objective, then lay it out, Give it to the American people and say, call your congressman,
Right.
text them, email them, whatever you want to do,
Right.
and tell us how you feel. And then they can go in as the representatives of the people, we the people of the United States, and they can make the decision whether we do it. It's not just my decision. Trump doesn't act that way. Dictators don't act that way. And people that don't care about the Constitution and the rule of law do act that way. So that's exactly what it is. We go in and do those things.
Well, we were a police state monitor, hall monitor in Vietnam. From the first casualty in Vietnam was American citizen. Actually, was in World War II.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and then in the late 1950s, we started to count them as names that would be on the wall. And between 1959, a little bit or before that, until 1965, 400 police state U.S. military people.
They were advisors. They were called advisors.
Were killed in Vietnam. So right now, just think about it in that perspective. It was 6 years later before we actually put in troops. So if you're comparing, if there is a comparison between then and now, Venezuela's in the embryo stage, and it's not even 6 years down the road. Who knows what will happen? But that's what you just keep getting deeper and quagmired and farther in the hole. And you got to say, okay, America, here's where we are, and be honest. That's all most people really.
I think
we expect from a president, but we're not getting it all from this one. Not once, not ever.
Well, we're not getting it from his party, and we're not getting it with most firm opposition from Democrats either. This is the Donroe Doctrine, as some people have referred to it.
Him?
And they're referencing the Monroe Doctrine, which was a doctrine that said America, as the power, had the right, Spanish-American War, okay, had the right to kind of rule the seas and everywhere else in the Western Hemisphere. That was rejected a long time ago, as was Manifest Destiny, as we now historically have rejected the idea that the American government could have and should have imprisoned really and moved Native Americans to reservations. And a lot of that stuff, we rejected it historically a long time ago. And what's really fascinating to me is you go back to the John Birchers, and I've harped on this probably too much, John Birchers, conservative Americans like Barry Goldwater, Tea Party people, neocons, and now Trumpers, their policy is America doesn't do this stuff. He ran on this. He ran on the idea that we weren't going to get into any more wars. We weren't going to do anything. He was going to, within a week, solve all of the conflicts in the world by the basis of his ability to bargain and the strength of his personality. It's bullshit. We knew it was bullshit. It's the only word for it at the time, but that's what people voted for. So you voted for him because you didn't want any of this stuff. And he has done just the opposite. He hasn't supported our allies in Europe. He hasn't supported the Ukraine. He hasn't supported the Organization of American States in the Western Hemisphere. He hasn't supported our allies in Europe. He supported nobody. In fact, he has made it more difficult for them. And so if that's the case, and it is the case, you can't vote for him, and you should be calling your Congress people and tell them, we don't want any of this, unless what you really want as Trump people is someone who will do whatever he wants without letting you know why he's doing it, but with the realization he may be making money on the side.
Well, he's making money on the side. He's even said he's going to claim the 50 million ransom. I mean, how much of it is believable? This guy says shit all the time just to stir the roux. But we're in now. No matter the case, you know, Maduro was indicted by international courts, and Biden and Obama both added to the case against the guy and didn't act, whatever. Okay, but that's not. That would have made a more compelling case for Trump to go in and say, hey, here's where the other guys dropped the ball, as opposed to dropping a bomb and then saying they dropped the ball. We could have been all educated about this because most of us don't know hardly squat about
Well, those
Venezuela.
those Republicans that have forgot the pangs of conscience they had on this type of actions, you'll forget they didn't want us to help in Syria at all.
Exactly.
They objected to Biden and Obama before them doing anything in the Middle East that involved the lives of Americans. Obama was, when he got elected, when he was running, they talked about how he had to get troops out of Afghanistan. And when he did, they bitched about that too. So the fact is, there's no policy here. And that's the thing. That's just the thing that gets me. So both sides of the political spectrum, tell us what your policies are. Write it out. That's what you used to do. There used to be a policy level understanding of what you stood for. I don't know what the Democratic Party stands for in large part.
I don't know.
And I am too, and I certainly don't know what the Republicans stand for, other than the obeisance to Donald Trump, kneeling in front of him and kissing his ring, if not his ass, and then you go out and do whatever you want.
The truth, the ringing truth to what you said is this, simplify it. The Trumpian claim was America first, right?
Yes.
And even Marjorie Taylor Greene says, wait a minute, us being this kind of I'm out of here. And she resigned yesterday and didn't release any names on the Epstein file, but she's out of there. That's what she said. We're not what we said we were. We've lied. But you know what, Republican congressmen are saying today? This is an example of America first because we're putting our priorities over first. By stealing their oil makes us first. No, it really doesn't. But they just changed the song. I had
Well, let me just reduce it, and then I'll let you finish. This is what Republicans congressmen are saying.
Yeah. Well, that's what you hear, but in the silence of the hallways, you're also hearing the rumblings of some schisms. There's some fractionals that are happening. They really are, and it'll come to some point where there's suddenly some courage found among one or two more Republicans, and that's all it will take.
Well, you're going to bring out the John Saltas in me because you're playing my role now. All right?
I am?
Yeah, in the sense that it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I'm going to play your role now. Where the fuck are you? Get up off your ass, okay? No, not you, the Republicans.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there's fractures. This should be an earthquake, a tsunami, and a hurricane and a tornado at once. The goddamn guy lied to you again, just like he lied to you about tariffs, and you won't stand up. When I walked the dog this morning up at the Capitol very early, there was a guy from ABC News setting up his camera. And I said to him, he's a cameraman. They're the best, by the way. They're great guys. Great to work with. I said, what are you here for? Governor Cox is going to make an announcement. Oh, is he going to make an announcement opposing Trump going to Venezuela? He just shook his head at me. He goes, no. He's going to talk about cell phones in schools. I go, okay. And then me and my dog walked away, and I thought about it. I thought, so we're in a critical situation worldwide now. The Ukraine is going to hell because we don't do our job there. We got problems in Palestine. We may now go back to Lebanon, if you believe Trump. We may attack and try to take Greenland. He said that. We got all of this stuff going on, and Governor Cox, and I think it's great that he's coming out and talking about that. That is a problem, I'm sure. But where are these MAGA Republicans?
Here's where they are, Ron. I mean, first off, credits to Cox for helping children in school.
Okay, I said
that. Put that away. But you also said, well, why don't they talk about all this other stuff? Because they all say it in the very same way, which is this. I haven't seen that clip on the news yet. I haven't read that press release yet when they're referring to Trump. Every Republican today, from Mike Johnson on down, who he said this now for 2 months, I don't know.
Well,
because they're all ducking. They're all not willing to get up and stand up and fight back on anything, even just a principle. They can turn around. If Cox said in a press conference, I support our troops doing what we did 3 days ago in Venezuela, just say it. But don't say you don't know enough about it to comment.
Well,
Bullshit.
you can even say you support the troops. They're
Either way.
But the problem that I have with it, you are the founder and were the director of a great little newspaper for a long time, and your son now does it. And again, read the new issue of the City Weekly. But how about this? So somebody writes an article for you, and you have an editor, and they come in, and they totally miss something. They intentionally avoid something that is totally relevant to the story. And you go in and say, you know what, I'm getting some calls. I mean, why didn't we do that? And they say, oh, we didn't know about it. And then what do after you fire them? I mean, because that's what's going to happen. How is it that these guys... In our case,
the story probably wouldn't have run.
Well, I get that, but
once it's run and you have damage like that, then you fix it. But you can't ignore it.
But it's the idea that that's an excuse now. I don't believe it would be an excuse if you were sitting in the room when he said that. I believe that I believe my brother, I believe Lee Benson, my friend Ian Lee. You would say, wait, hold on. You mean you don't have somebody in your coterie of people that we the people pay for to help you? They didn't tell you about this? Are you doing drug testing in your office, or what's the deal? How can you say you don't know about that? But we don't do that anymore.
Well, the press corps has been decimated on a national level. There's not very many really hardcore, true investigative-style journalists left, not too many hard-nosed, just straight-up news journalists left. And if you remember, the whole coterie of them stepped out and said, we're not going to cover the Pentagon in the way you want us to cover the Pentagon, which is repeat what you say.
Right.
If you want that, go read Pravda. And now now they've turned our state, our formerly respected journalists, methods of journalism, not methods, the vehicles, CBS and New York Times and others, into piecemeal. They're mush. So
big story about the guy that is now the anchor at CBS.
I won't tune in, so I don't give a shit about him.
But
he's a cartoonist to me. He's not a journalist.
But that's an example of what you're talking about.
So you know, at the Pentagon, Hegseth gets up and talks tough, and there's no Jim Acosta in the room. There's no Sam Donaldson. There's no, whatever. There's not a Sander Van Oker, Chris Van Oker's father. Those people are passed away. There's nobody that resembles that kind of a hard-nosed question asker that in the press corps today.
Oh, but we have one in Utah. Nick Shirley.
Oh, Nick.
We have one in Utah that is getting all kinds of credit for that. You want to talk a little bit about Nick Shirley?
I don't know a lot about him. I remember a few years ago. I'll tell you what I know. Yeah, he's not very old.
Tell these people who he is.
Nick Shirley has suddenly this past week or two, he's been gaining, but in the past, say, 3 weeks, really gained a lot of notoriety as a social influencer, I think that's the word for it. He puts out these TikToks and videos that are with the intent of being just a smartass. That's where he started. A 16-year-old kid up in Farmington, Utah, who would do goofy things online, and people would suddenly follow him. I can think of, what did this kid do? He flew to New York without telling his parents. He's 16 years old. Puts it online. People follow and say, "Hey, wow, that kid, he's cool." That was one thing. He videoed an 83-year-old grandmother doing the splits and put that out on social media. And these things get followings and gatherings and so on. So that was his notoriety. He got really popular just trying to be smarmy and just being cute. And this is his calling, to attract people to what he does. He's not a dumb kid. He's a smart kid. But then he went on a church mission, and LDS church mission, came back and found that his path to even greater numbers of followers would be with political tinged kind of commentary. So the most recent one he did was to go to Minneapolis, I suppose, somewhere in Minnesota, and found the Somali community daycares, and he walked around with his cell phone taking pictures of him knocking on the door. People would come to the door and he'd say, "See, there's nobody here. I've exposed the fraud. There's hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud going on." Elon Musk, who owns X and operates it, writes the algorithm to push this shit forward, J.D. Vance, the vice president, pushes this shit forward. And next thing you know, he's the star of the right. He found this Somalian fraud, which was the buzzword. Last year it was Haitians eating dogs and cats. This year it's
that
Somalis.
had been investigated before.
Well, there is fraud going on, but
I'm saying it had been investigated before, and there's an investigation ongoing.
Well, here's the thing. His investigation, he's being called the new journalist. That's not journalism. That's a kid with a camera. So he didn't say, oh, where are the children? Because if he had, he'd have found out very quickly. Maybe he already knew, which would be a lie in journalism. Students or anyone else supposed to do this. The schools were closed that day. There were no students there anyway. And by the way, he only knocked on about a few doors, and supposedly this adds up to $100 million. Kick all Somalians out of the United States. They're not contributing anything to us. That's the line in Congress today from Nancy Mace. So, this stuff is dangerous when you gather people together around a theme that they want to believe, then feed them that information, and it funnels just more anger into them and more distrust, and they just keep on clapping about it because now it validates them in a way that just keeps coming back to the ugliest of all of any human being: racial tones, economic tones, other kinds of biases. That's what's selling, not news and not journalism. The real journalist an investigative journalist would have gone in and done this or something like it. Found the children in Minnesota who were missing the meals and showed them skin and bones. The money was stolen. And look at this poor child here. The money was supposed to go to him.
And let's find out where it went.
Where it went. And where it went. It didn't go to other Somalians. It's the same as like when, if you watch the movie, it was on TV. It was a series called Ozark. And pretty soon, find out that drugs in the poppy fields and all that stuff isn't all about, peasantry and being exploited elsewhere. It's some rich guy in America.
Right.
That's making some money off it and getting fined. I used to hear when I was young, like there are amphetamine labs up in the avenues.
Yeah.
Okay, and people in Park City were buying places that were in the drug business. You might know that.
Well,
I
was one of the lawyers on Operation Snowflake. I represented people in that a long time ago.
But we didn't send them all back to their home base wherever they're born or DNA was from. And we didn't say they were uncast Americans. We didn't even attack them. We went and attacked somewhere else. We attacked the people in the ghetto with the bags.
Well, not only that, I'll tell you what else we didn't do. And we didn't go after the people that were flying the drugs in either, because the people that were flying them in had ties to people that were untouchable. If I were to ever write my memoirs, that there would be a chapter about that case and about exactly what happened and what went on with it. So yeah.
So we're using drugs. We're using drugs as a transport to send our troops, the best in the world. We all know that the United States Army is a potent son of a gun force, and we need to be proud of it and support. Yeah. And there are reasons to, but it's not to send 20 to 25% of our entire military might to take down this guy Maduro, when we probably could have done a lot easier. When I was first in bar, there was a guy, and in fact I met a couple of guys like this, and maybe it's just because of the word circles I hang out in, because I don't dig this very far because it frankly scares me. The guy used to come in one of the places I used to work, and he had a white-collar job that didn't seem to pay, and the job by a job title would not have paid the way he would spend money, but it was a legit deal.
Yeah.
He'd disappear. He'd say, I've probably seen about 3 weeks before we go on vacation. I got other stuff to do. And he'd come back tanned, where he'd been. And he'd say, just away. Well, what he had been in the war, he'd been well-trained as a sniper. And I'm talking about the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And as a subversive agent, a lot of our guys in the early stages of going overseas learned a lot of skills in all kinds of ways. And next thing you know, you'd read in the paper, that a bloodless coup occurred in some South American country. And the guy that you're serving margaritas to had a hand in it.
Sure.
And so we know how to depose the people we don't like. Russia knows how to do that very well. You throw them off a fucking roof. So, be that. But we don't need to send and show some kind of might and flex. We could have got that guy out of there in 2 seconds, because bullies like they'll talk. And they'll negotiate a deal. Maduro may have done that.
Well, I don't believe you mean this. I don't think that we should do that.
I don't say we should do that. I say we know how to do that.
But the greater point here is that I don't think Americans that applaud that type of thing. It's like the killing in DM.
Believe me, I'm not applauding.
No, I know you're not. I'm not. But there are
frightening.
Americans that are applauding it. Okay.
Yeah, it was frightening.
I don't think it. I don't. It's like the assassination of DM in Vietnam. We haven't done those things. We can do them, and we probably the CIA has probably been involved in them. We've stood against that, and there is a self-serving reason for that. Because if we can do that, that means we're not off base for it either. And it can be a Minneapolis politician, which happened.
It happened. And where's MAGA on that one? I want to know where the rage is on the Hortmans.
Well,
they seem to be okay with the fact that there was a flat-out murder of two Democratic politicians, and they say nothing. This is just nutty,
and also,
lines drawn.
There was a plot to kidnap the governor of Michigan.
Yeah.
And that gets us to, I think, a place we should just briefly talk about, and that is I'm going to read you some headlines, and I want you to tell me good journalism, bad journalism, true or false.
Oh, God.
Okay? All right? And the first one goes to just what we were talking about, and that is true or false. Donald Trump is indicated that he is going to declare January 6th a national holiday, and they're going to call it Trader Day.
Not like Trader Joe's.
Not like Trader Joe's, Trader Day. True or false?
That's false.
Okay.
The reason being, a person of the narcissism of Donald Trump would not do that. He would name it on his own birthday.
Okay, very well done. Well done on this. Most of these are actual things, but I want to talk this gets to journalism. What is or is not journalism? Because when I open my computer in the morning, I get my news from Apple, all right, that I look at. And this is a legitimate story that was there that they wanted me to read. Little House of the Prairie star exposes her resentment and anger towards co-star Michael Landon.
Clickbait.
Journalism?
No, it's news. It's not journalism, and it's news because somebody wants to read it by the loosest definition of news: entertainment news, sports news, music news. It's news. It's not germane to a better life for me, so it's clickbait to me.
Okay, so I don't consider that journalism. I wish I could find
it's not journalism. There's no journalism about it.
I wish I could find a way to eliminate all those things, but I can't. They just come up on me.
You're going to see some.
All right. The GOP announces a health care plan for America. True or false?
False. That's been a 2-week plan for the last 10 years. And of Donald saying that he'll have a health care plan in 2 weeks. We still don't have one. It predates that by decades.
Okay, see, this is why he ran a paper bill. This is it. You're getting the answers all correct, okay? Let's see. Trump settled the wars in Gaza, Palestine, Myanmar, the Ukraine, and the war that was going on in Los Angeles.
You're leaving out Portland. You're leaving out the war on dandruff.
Okay.
On halitosis.
Okay.
On obesity.
Okay.
But no, he solved. There's a definitive definition, a legal definition of what a war is and what solving is, and you brought that up because you're a contract. You're your first student. You're in law school. There's definitions that really do apply. Standing up and saying you ended a war is not the definitive way to call a war over. And just because you can say so doesn't make it so. And people are still dying in every location that he supposedly ended the wars in.
Okay.
We simply started to talk about something else in America when forgot about that line because the Nobel Peace Prize passed him by. We don't talk about that anymore. We start wars now.
Okay. Well done. You're doing really well on this. We'll take sports for 5. All right.
Okay.
All right. And Bill Belichick loses his starting quarterback and his girlfriend to the transfer portal at the same day.
That one might be true. I don't know, but no.
She's young enough to get into the transfer portal.
It's newsy. It's clickbaity, but it's not news.
Okay, all right. Well, in the same vein, the University of Michigan wins the Collegiate Lap Dance Bowl.
Wow.
True or false?
It just depends how much Whittingham learned from Urban Meyer when it comes to lap dancing, I suppose.
Right. Well done. Well done, because that was the second part of the question.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And but the real answer is that's why they brought Witt in to coach Michigan, because they don't believe that he will follow Urban or Sharon Moore in pursuing lap dances. Let's see, just a couple more. What's his name? Nick Shirley.
Nick again, okay.
Yeah, it's him again. His discovery in Minneapolis is of the biggest fraud in the history of the United States.
Obviously not true.
Okay.
It's not news. And when Donald Trump reads that headline, he will say, no, I've committed the biggest fraud in the history of the United States. This Nick Shirley guy, somebody go take care of him, bust his knuckles.
Okay, and that's also because it undermines the whole history of American fraud, going back to the Teapot Dome scandal, which may have... would require somebody to have an idea of what history is. But anyway, so those are just a few questions.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you believe at any point, what is it, the rationales for going to Venezuela, just bouncing all that for a sec, back to it, was because he was a bad guy in every way, shape, or form, and he was selling drugs or being a drug narco-terrorist. That was part of it. And Trump said the other day he was killing Americans by virtue of being a narco-terrorist. Is that a valid reason to depose? Now, by the way, there's also the caveat there. He has been indicted as, he was found guilty of such, and there's no denying that.
No, he wasn't found guilty. He was
he's not
indicted.
found guilty. He was indicted yet. I'm sorry.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, well, still, there's at least that much about it, but with no international court for him to appear in, we took it into our own hands somewhat. Anybody could have done it in the presidential seat. They didn't. Maybe they should have. Maybe they shouldn't have.
There is an international court, but now we are on the outs with the international court because we're being investigated, meaning the United States, for blowing up people in international waters that we claim are narco-terrorists. We have no right to do that. There is an international court. There are actually courts in Venezuela. There are courts in the United States and other countries near there. And there's a thing it's an evanescent idea, I guess, from some people. It's called evidence. So let's talk about where the evidence of any of this is.
Lacking the evidence, we went in there without the evidence yet. So, just curious to ask you, Gron, as that predicate that Venezuela, via Maduro, or whatever means, was harming American citizens, the president should take care of American citizens. That is one of his functions, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I read that the biggest importer into Canada of fentanyl is the United States. Is that true?
I think it's probably true.
So would Canada have a case there predicated on this thing, and they could take matters into their own hands and say, you went after Venezuela and they don't even export fentanyl. Yet you are sending fentanyl across to Windsor and everywhere else in Canada and killing Canadians. Could they have a predicate there?
I guess they could if you accepted the...
I'm not looking for a legal term, but that's what happens.
If you accepted the major premise that countries have a right to do that. But we go back to something that's really...
Well, how would you handle it, though, if you wanted to handle Trump?
You can't, because this is kind of in law school, okay? You were playing the professor. You did pretty well. And you're really gray and
Goodwill
all that
hunting
stuff. You get off on these arguments that they're non sequiturs because they don't follow, because the original premise isn't based on a rule of law. It's based upon the thoughts of an individual. I'll say it again. If we're really worried about stopping drugs and coming into America, fucking stop doing them, America.
That's it.
Here's the deal. The thing is, if Billy Bob down in Texas wants us to stop doing drugs, or drugs coming in the country, then make sure in your county, your kids, and all of the older people aren't doing drugs that they're getting from South and Central American countries, and also passing them through in your pickup trucks and stuff like that. Stop it. find a way to deal with it under the attitudes and the love you have for this country, because it is a problem.
Well, you have a data point now because now we've interdicted. So at that data point, inflection point, we can now measure 1 year from now what this did in terms of were there fewer deaths to drugs in the United States. My theory is it will be zero. In effect, people are still going to do drugs and find other ways. J.D. Vance claims all this hillbilly shit about his family being, and he actually does have. His mother was, she was an addict for a long time, but not. It wasn't fentanyl. It was heroin and painkillers, I think. And he did have a relative die of it. But he's up there standing up and saying, because I had this tragedy in my family, and there's hundreds of millions of these, that's what they always say, hundreds of millions of deaths a year, due to this. And they're making shit up. I mean,
well, there are lots of deaths every year.
Stop the usage. Stop it right here at home.
Yeah, stop. I mean, I've said this on this very program before a couple times. I wrote a column for the City Weekly a long time ago, and it may have been for the Private Eye, actually, bad-mouthing Nancy Reagan for her Just say no.
Just say no.
Just say no. And I thought that was stupid. I was so smart. I was young, and I was a lawyer, and I was defending people in drug cases. Well, just say no won't do it. But the fact of the matter is, if our generation had just said no, go, no, we're not doing that, man. That's bad shit. We're not doing it. Then we wouldn't have transferred our addictive behavior to our kids and what all that comes with it. Because it's the total deal. You don't want crime. You don't what goes along with crime relative to drugs. Stop doing drugs. Stop it, America. I mean, and if you can't do that, then don't go into somebody else's country and kill them, because they're doing what we have exported for a long, long time, and that is the idea of the free market system. You got a need and a want, and you got to have people that supply that need or want, and then when you do that, you can be rich and famous as Donald Trump, okay? And that's what we've talked about for a long time. That's the economics of the American dream. Well, when it comes to drugs, here's the deal. It's bad because there are a lot of things bad for you. Double cheeseburgers aren't good for you. We market that all the time. So God damn it, stop doing drugs. Turn to your son, who you know smoking dope in the bedroom, and go, this is bad for you, sonny, and here's the deal. It will kill you, but if you keep doing it in my bedroom, in my house, I'm going to kill you first. And so we can move on from it. It's a joke.
What if you were Scotland?
They do drugs too.
Well, they also do. Just on Scotland, one thing that we export into the rest of the world is this kind of an imbalanced view of what sexuality is, and we have a president who's been accused and indicted of all kinds of improper sexual behaviors that probably aren't good for children.
This is the most unusual sequitur that I've ever been.
Yeah, it is, because what if Scotland said, well, we don't like to get this kind of stuff from America, just like we don't like getting drugs from Venezuela. What if they said that? And what if they then said, like we did, we'll just take this guy's golf courses away.
Yeah.
That bombing won't matter because he'll have you take the guy's golf courses away, he'll be upset. Yeah, it is a bad non sequitur. But the only way, my point is if you deal with Trump to his nose, as opposed to letting somebody else do the fighting or somebody else paying for it, it's a better punch to me.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
No, that's a great idea. I mean, I guess if you want to fight back against Donald Trump, you don't fight back against America. Us lemmings that follow him off the cliff.
He's not throwing his support into making sure that Americans are better off by this. He's making sure he is. So go to Turkey, and Turkey gets pissed off and look at the mirror one day and go, you know what? We're 98% Muslim. We got 2% Christians here. Let's get that Trump Tower out of here. Well, then we will get a reaction.
But the one thing that we have sold, we've only got a few minutes left. We got to be honest about this as America. We once sold truth, justice, and the American way. Now we sell marketing and the ability to sell anything to anybody if we say the right things to sell it to them. And it really is the consumer attitude that we have sold to the world and to each and every one of us. If we really want to think about it and we really want to get to Trump, then we've got to find all of the countries that manufacture golf clubs and golf balls. Yeah. And then they are the ones that have got to say, we're not sending any more golf clubs or golf balls to America or to any of Trump's. And
locker room behavior.
And then that will be our way of stopping Donald Trump, because he's not going to go for that.
Right. Well, people, like
So
I said,
I
they're starting to peel away, and I think there'll be more of it. Something will happen in Trump land soon enough. The vague ways that they defend the guy, and they're so amorphous about their beliefs and how they follow this guy, and anything he does is good, doesn't make me, I'll say it again, the Trump derangement syndrome. It's the exact opposite. All those people that go along with that cultish behavior, and I'm usually not one to say that about a Trump. But it's starting to look more and more like to me. I've resisted that. But I'll tell you what, no matter where this guy goes, there are some people with the elephant turd scooper can't wait to get there.
Well, here's the thing. I want to end on this. And
Let's end it.
You get the last.
No, I don't want to last.
You get the last word. I am stunned that I've had at least some impact on you, because you gave my side earlier. Now you've come back to yours, and I was so impacted by you, I went all John Saltas today. So,
God, listen to what that sounds like.
God bless you, man.
Oh no!
All right.
No, yeah. Well, hey, look, it's a new dawn. We'll see what happens next week. You know, there's crazy stuff going on in our country, and you said, I'll just pray that I used this in a discussion earlier today. My reference to this both sides stuff is this, and this is the last word for if you want it. I'm sick of it. I don't want to hear both sides stuff any longer, not for a second, because particularly what in the frame of it this morning was this: is that framing that I'm not hearing their side. Well, I actually am. Truth can be validated with facts. There's honorable ways to go about a discussion. An opinion is not both-sidism. It's just somebody too lazy to look at the facts. So people who declare that the Democrats did it, whatever, that plain up both-sidism, are on another side, but they don't have a door. They are just on the other side. And both-sidism in my world has always been, there's at least a window there. And I can see what the other side is doing, and I can study them, and they can study me. And eventually one person, somebody somewhere opens that door, and there's bipartisanship, or there's an exchange of ideas that are really beneficial, and people move forward. Where we are right now, this both-sidism is a lock. It's like being on both sides of the Hoover Dam with no water in it, and nobody seems to want to figure out how to make the water flow, how to see the other side's opinion, whatever. That's the problem with every argument today is, but Biden did it. But Biden didn't do it. That's not solving anything.
No, I mean, I said to give you the last word. I agree with you 100%. You can't argue without the idea that you're arguing towards truth, okay? And we've stopped that because, and I don't mean to say both sides do this equally in America, but both sides are less interested in arguing to truth than they are about arguing to get reelected.
To reelected, to be on the winning team, to own the libs, to own all that bullshit.
Yeah.
It's the wrong side to be on because it's not a productive side. And every time you have presented a fact, or I, or the newspapers, we are then the liars because we can't be trusted. That was the first thing that happens in every kind of autocratic, regime. Diminish, devalue, get rid of trust in the spoken icons of your past. Whether it be, and as soon as that's gone, guys like Nick Shirley thrive. Then all of a sudden you have these people that are speaking something, they're popular, and populism is not truth. And we fight that all the time in the newspaper world. And unfortunately, with the economics of the way it is, it's easier for a CBS to kowtow than to tell the truth. So there you go. Last word, it kind of went too long. Well, it's not untypical, is it?
No, it isn't, but that's okay. I mean, it was well stated by you, and we'll end here. We'll be back next week. And I had hope during the program today, and John just has destroyed all my hope. I'm going to be sad the rest of the week. That's not true. Cut that out.
All right.
We'll see.
Bye.